and friends that love us. Unfortunately, some of our boys don't even have that. How hard it is for them to steer away from all those negative impulses of Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff that drives me crazy every single day. All the so-called cool things that keep them excited and not excited to stay into Boy Scouts. But that can change. It takes every single one of us to save them. I always talk about my other boys, so you know I'm going to be an embarrassing parent right now, but Troop 760 is also one of my boys, and I like to be an equal opportunity. I want to embarrass them all while they're here. But this is definitely a troop that has taken every ounce of pulling and struggling and support from everybody in the room and scoutmasters and commissioners, volunteers to get them where they're at. The same for Cameron and Aaron. They would not be Eagle Scouts today if they didn't have people in this room to help Mike and I, because we could not have done it on our own. You know, as a parent, you can only yell so loud before they start to tune you out. Boy Scouts has given my boys, all my boys, an identity. My boys are going to make it, you can bet that, including 760. You know, they've come over a lot of bumps and hurdles, but they're going to make it. They're not there yet, but they will make it. Now imagine if there was no scouting and those boys did not have this opportunity. I made a plea to all of you last year to make a difference. This year, cards are on your table. I want you to fill them out and check a box. I know that some of you don't want to be a scoutmaster, and some of you don't not even like to camp, and I know that magic 1 hour a week might not be enticing to you, but I believe we all have something to give. Some kind of, you could give your time, your opinion, maybe some great idea that can change this boys' lives. Life can be so different for hundreds of boys in the city and county if only we can imagine what life would be with scouting. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for the Miller family? Congratulations. Families like the Millers portray the missions of this organization and exemplify why tonight is so important to this organization. Monies raised from this evening will be used for Scout Reach, a division within the Boy Scouts that focuses on urban and rural scouting initiatives. This division ensures that all young people have an opportunity to join scouting regardless of their circumstances, neighborhood, or ethnic background. Scout Reach prepares urban and rural youth to be leaders, to accept responsibility, and to care about principles and the causes beyond their own self-interest. There are many people to thank for the success of this program. Of course, there are families like the Millers that entrust the program with their most valuable possessions, their sons. There's also a host of volunteers, committee members, and staff. Tonight, we applaud you all for your efforts, and a special thanks to you at UPMC for being our title sponsor for this evening. Thank you. At this time, I'd also like to recognize and acknowledge the past recipients of the Whitney M. Young Junior Service Award. If all members here could please stand and accept our applause, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your continued service to the Boy Scouts of America. It takes a lot of work and a team of people to make tonight's dinner a success, and that includes the work of this year's Whitney M. Young Junior Service Awards dinner chair. Please join me in a round of applause for our chairman, Mr. Ron Lawrence.
Good evening. I would like to start off, before I introduce our keynote, I'd like to make a special commendation to Mr. Jason Flowers, our Scout executive over Scout Plaza. Mr. Jason. You know, we set a goal for this year, and Jason said, why don't we double that goal? And believe it or not, we doubled the goal and made it. So Jason was successful in leading us to that challenge and also helping us to make that challenge. So thank you, give him another round, okay? Now, I have a special job to do at this time, and that is introduce our keynote speaker. I've known Al Dotson for a number of years. We started back in the 100 Black Men, back in the days when we first kicked off the national organization. He came in shortly after that. The national organization started in 1987, and I met Al in 1990. So I've known him since 1990. So that's been a few years. And we also found out something else tonight when we were talking, and that is that we were both in Detroit at the same time. We didn't realize that. He lived there, he grew up there, and I was there in school for my engineering degree. And we found out that we were only a couple of miles apart. In fact, it wasn't even that far, a few blocks apart. So unbelievable. Al has a lot of history about him, and I want to at least tell you a little bit. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pull out those things you have to have when you pass 40, okay? I won't put the other time into it. Sometimes they say when you pass 60, huh? Anyway, Al is one of 15 designated appointees to the President's Advisory Commission on Educational Excellence. The White House has announced that already. The commission is charged with strengthening the nation by improving educational outcomes for African Americans to ensure that all African Americans receive an education that prepares them for their life's work and productive careers and satisfying life. This was stated by the White House in their announcement in January of this past year. Dotson served and earned his degree, undergraduate degree at Dartmouth College before earning his JD, his Juris Doctorate, at Vanderbilt. He has been a partner at Blitz and Sunberg in Miami, Florida, where he currently leads the firm's government relations organization and land development practice group. He was also a partner before that at Eckert Siemens from 1995 to 1998. He was an associate before that at Jenner and Block from 1990 to 1993, and an associate at Fines Jacobson Swartz Block in England from 1987 to 1990. He was national chairman of the 100 Black Men, for which I served with him and helped him out being one of the local chapter presidents for a number of years. And this is a civics organization that's founded and funded to mentor, educate, and empower African American youth. And he was the president from the chairman from 2004 to 2013. Before that, he was the organization's vice chairman from 1995 to 2004 with Tommy Deutsch. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker tonight, Mr. Al Dotson.
Thanks, Ron. As Ron takes his seat, I want you all to know that Ron said he helped me as I served as chair. For those of you who know Ron, you know that Ron makes sure that you stay on point. He makes sure that all questions are asked and that you answer every question he asks you. So I want you to know that Pittsburgh sent to the 100 Black Men of America a taskmaster, a person who we all respect. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Ron in a moment. But before I do that, I want to go back to something that the judge said when he was standing at this podium. I want you to know that I, too, became a member of the Boy Scouts. Not quite the way you did. My father was very active in scouting. He shared with myself and others the importance of scouting. And we became involved in Detroit, not too far from where Ron was in school. I was 5 years old at the time when Ron was in graduate school. But It was something that really stuck with us for a very long time. The second thing that happened, Judge, when you stood here is you said you had 5 to 7 minutes. They've now explained to me that you took all of my minutes when you spoke, and I am left now with only an hour and a half, so you all get comfortable. The third thing that is very important that you shared, that it touched me as I was sitting there, and he didn't mention this as he spoke, that also at his table is his son. And as a son of a very proud father, I watched him as you spoke. He looked at every word you said. He smiled with great pride. And it's interesting to say, from a mentee standpoint, that you're preparing the next generation. But when someone who lives in your home day in and day out looks at you with that admiration, it says a lot. So, Your Honor, thank you very much for all you do for your family and the families throughout Pittsburgh. Now, when Ron was introducing me, he shared my biography. I didn't realize he was going to go back to when I got out of law school. But there is a tie that I have to this community, and it is Eckerd Siemens. It was the first place that I was named partner, first firm for which I worked that I was named partner. And I thank Eckerd Siemens and the role it played in helping me become the lawyer that I am today. And I know that those lawyers, including Carl Barger, who moved from Pittsburgh down to Miami and then ultimately became the president of the now Miami Marlins, had a lot to do with my career. So I want to thank Pittsburgh for what it gave to me in helping me become the lawyer that I am. Boy Scouts and the principles behind Boy Scouts, and you saw a young man, Aaron Miller, who spoke, an Eagle Scout, who mentioned the phrase, "What they see is what they'll be," a phrase that embodies what the 100 Black Men of America do and what scouting is really all about. And scouting is about making sure that young people have role models who teach them exactly what it means to be a contributing member of society. And too frequently, too many young people don't have the benefit of that. Now, sometimes you'll get a keynote speaker who will preach to the choir. Everyone will go home and say, "Yeah, I knew that already." So I know in this room, everyone already understands the importance of scouting and the importance of getting people involved in scouting. But the question is, what is unique about Pittsburgh and the principles of scouting that you can leave here, walk out these doors and say, we have a unique opportunity that nowhere else in this country can this take place? As I was driving through Pittsburgh, as I flew up from Miami to Pittsburgh in February, to this wonderful place to be, on Ron Lawrence's birthday, by the way. He didn't want me to say this, but he flew me up here on his birthday just so I could tell you all to wish him happy birthday. But as we were, no, don't do it. He gets a little big-headed from time to time. One of the things that I noticed as I was driving, Ron was explaining to me the strategic positioning of Pittsburgh. Two rivers come together to form the Ohio River. What has happened here as a result of its strategic location. A city that began and flourished as the automobile industry grew, not because it invested exclusively in the automobile industry, but the parts that made the automobile industry what it was. I was born in Detroit. We lived in Detroit. We watched a city that we know and love invest itself so much in an industry that when that industry went away, so did the city. That did not happen in Pittsburgh. It strategically began to focus on what the next opportunity was going to be and to make itself a leader in that industry. Pittsburgh did that. Pittsburgh led the nation in that thought about how one transforms itself, how one learns from from who you are and where you need to be. Pittsburgh has universities that line every street downtown. Pittsburgh has a public school system that is led by a visionary leader. Pittsburgh has a growing opportunity to expand the principles of Boy Scouts to improve the educational opportunities for every young person in this community. When you leave here today, we can congratulate those who are receiving the awards because they are extraordinarily worthy. You can recognize Boy Scouts for what it has done. But the question we must ask ourselves is, what more can Pittsburgh do as the leaders that you are in transforming cities and looking beyond today's environment and preparing yourself for tomorrow that the rest of the nation can follow? That's your unique opportunity. You're strategically positioned to do just that. If the colleges and universities in this city said that the promise that is available to every young person is going to be realized by every young person. If the universities in Pittsburgh said that every young person who goes to public school will not only graduate, but graduate with the skills that they need in order to become students at our schools, then can you imagine what would happen when you walked out of this room and said that we're going to go from whatever the percentages of the graduation rate at whatever ethnicity you look at and say we're going to raise it to 100%. And you say, Al, look, 100% graduation rate? That just can't happen. Pittsburgh can make it happen if you want to make it happen. You have the resources to do that. And the principles of Boy Scouting is what it's all about. I was laughing earlier that I remember how to tie a square knot. I think that's the only knot I remember how to tie. But I knew when they taught me how to tie a square knot, they weren't teaching me knotting, they were preparing me for something. I knew as I got my various badges, never made it to Eagle Scout, not sure if I could have withstood all of the many challenges that the judge did. But I knew with every badge I was learning something that was going to prepare me for life. That is precisely what Pittsburgh has an opportunity to do for every young person in your community. I could not leave this podium without challenging you to go well beyond the comfort of reading the paper and saying that that's just another tragic situation, it's just another statistic, and I'll just do what I do in my corner of the universe and be comfortable with that. I will read the paper, enjoy the banquets, and be comfortable with that. My goal here tonight is to push you beyond your comfort zone so that you can take full advantage of your strategic location and the history of this city. Leave this room inspired by the stories you've heard. Leave this room encouraged by the young people who have presented here today. Leave this room empowered by the history of the Boy Scouts in this community. But leave this room committed to doing something different, making Pittsburgh the leader in transforming education in our nation. I'm not going to give you the specifics because you will determine what works best here. There are many different ways in which that can happen, engaging community-based organizations to get involved in our schools. Making sure that scouting not only becomes a discussion of troops, but how those troops go out into the community and make others better, those who they touch and those with whom they engage. That is the challenge of today. That is the opportunity that is presented to you. That's how you leverage your strategic position. That's how, as you travel down toward the Ohio River, people will say that what's flowing through that river is coming from Pittsburgh, where it first started, where a community decided that we have transformed ourselves once again, and now we're going to make sure that everybody in the community has an opportunity to participate. That's your opportunity. Now, it is always appropriate when you are giving a keynote address to thank a list of people. And there are a number of those people who have already been recognized from this podium. There's one group, though, that I would like to thank in the most special way. And those are the young men who are here in a scouting uniform. I see some of you. The light is bright, so I know that you are still here. And I'm going to ask all of you who are here, who are scouts, who are in uniform, to come stand over by Judge Livingston, who's standing to my left. Now, young men, I know that you can move quicker than you're moving right now. And just stand behind the table to my left. As you leave this room, to have a man stand here and talk about 75 years of scouting, to have young people on a screen share what it is for him to be a great mentor, to have us even talking about the next generation, and not give these young people an opportunity to stand behind the man who has blazed the trail for them, is something that I could not leave this dais without doing. Young men, you don't necessarily appreciate sometimes the history that walks among you. You don't always understand that the path that you're walking on has been blazed by someone whose trials and tribulations you will never have to face because he faced them for you. Sometimes you never understand that the statement about being prepared is more than a slogan. It's something that someone lived a life of being prepared so that you would have an opportunity to excel in what you want to do. So at this time, I ask you to salute him, because I don't want an applause for anything that I've said today, because that judge has done everything that needed to be done in order for these young men to make it through and to wherever it is they want to go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.